Good evening, welcome to the English news from the Sound of Oman television. First, the headlines. The Sound of Oman reviews the status of Omani women and their role in building, developing and prospering the nation during the 69th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York. And China, Russia and Iran emphasize need to end all unlawful unilateral sanctions. Those are the headlines, and now the news in detail. Represented by the Ministry of Social Development, the Sultan of Oman continues to participate in the 69th session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women being held in New York. The session focuses on reviewing and appraising the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action after 30 years since the declaration was first endorsed. The session, which began in 10th of March, will continue until 21st of March 2025. Her Excellency Dr. Laila bint Ahmed Al-Najjar, Minister of Social Development, who heads the Sultan of Oman's delegation to the current session, affirmed that Oman has accorded great attention to the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action since its inception in 1995. Her Excellency Dr. Laila pointed out that Omani women achieved high rates of enrollment in education, 97.7% in 2024, and higher education, 66% in 2023, while the percentage of female graduates in scientific specializations rose to 50%. Oman's participation in the United Nations session included a visual presentation of Oman's major legislative developments and statistical indicators on women's status, the best initiatives, and some success stories of Omani women in the field of innovation. Oman's oil export total quantity exceeded 25,800,000 barrels until the end of last January, with the average price per barrel being $72.50. And we have a report on that.
More than 25,800,000 barrels is the total quantity of Oman's oil exports until the end of last January, with the average price per barrel being $72.50. Oil exports constituted about 84% of the total production, which was more than 30,600,000 barrels. Of this, more than 7,200,000 barrels were oil condensates, while the average daily production was 987,500 barrels. Statistics from the National Center for Statistics and Information indicated that the total oil exports recorded a decrease of 1.5% of an annual basis, corresponding with a 2% decline in production. On the other hand, the total domestic production and import of natural gas exceeded 4,600,000,000 cubic meters by the end of last January, an increase of 9.5% of an annual basis. These statistics also showed that industrial projects accounted for more than 52% of natural gas usage, while the rest was distributed among oil fields, power generation plants, and industrial areas.
China and Russia stood by Iran today after the United States demanded nuclear talks with Tehran, with the senior Chinese and Russian diplomats saying dialogue should only resume based on mutual respect and all sanctions ought to be lifted. In 2015, Iran agreed to curb its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of international sanctions in a deal with US, Russia, China, Britain, France and Germany. But in 2018, Donald Trump, a year into his first term as US president, pulled out of the pact. China, Russia and Iran emphasized that the relevant parties should be committed to addressing the root cause of the current situation and abandoning sanctions pressure or threat of force. China's Foreign Minister Ma Zhuxiu told reporters after the meeting. The United Nations warned of dangers of the continued closure of the crossings into the Gaza Strip. A UN spokesperson, Stefani Dujarric, said the organization was forced to reduce food rations so to prioritize assisting the largest possible number of people in need, adding that the food security situation could deteriorate sharply unless the now of aid into Gaza resumes as soon as possible. Earlier, the World Health Organization, WHO, warned that public health risks, including infectious diseases, remain extremely high in Gaza due to overcrowding and poor sanitation. The organization noted that by the end of February 24th, the environmental samples collected had tested positive for poliovirus. Catherine Russell, Executive Director of the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, said that more than 30 million people in Sudan, two-thirds of the population, will need humanitarian assistance this year, including 16 million children. In her address to the UN Security Council, Russell noted that Sudanese children are suffering greatly as a result of the largest and most devastating humanitarian crisis in the world. UNICEF estimates that approximately 1.3 million children under the age of 5 are living in famine zones, and the 3 million children in the same age group are at imminent risk of deadly diseases outbreaks, while 16.5 million children are out of school. She emphasized that the scale and severity of the crisis require an urgent de-escalation of the conflict, the resumption of the political dialogue to permanently end the conflict, meeting the urgent needs of millions of vulnerable people, and unrestricted humanitarian access across borders and conflict lines to combat and mitigate famine. Still to come, a news bulletin. Tahloula is one of the Omani traditions where children dress in traditional costumes, carry lanterns, move around in procession, and recite prayers praising Allah the Almighty. Welcome back to the news from this alternate Oman television. The city of Muscat transforms this Ramadan with stunning lights illuminating key landmarks and streets, creating a festive and spiritual ambience across the city. More details in the following report.
Muscat shines bright this Ramadan with stunning light displays. The city glows this Ramadan with beautifully designed lights illuminating key streets and landmarks to capture the essence of the holy month. The Muscat municipality has adorned the city with vibrant Ramadan-themed displays at Matrah and Muscat gates, as well as along Sultan Qaboos Street, creating a festive and spiritual ambience.
To see this for the first time, and really thank you Bulletin Muscat municipality for doing this. It's add the flavor to the blessing night, to the mood, and make us happy.
So it's really good place to hang out with your family, friends. It has a very calm and soothing experience, and because of Ramadan, the decorations here are really great and it's eye-catching. When you go to the roads, you can see the lights and stuff. It's really good.
Residents have embraced these decorations with admiration, describing them as a first of their kind spectacle. Many were captivated by the stunning designs and illuminated installations, which beautifully reflect Islamic heritage and add to the city's charm. These dazzling displays not only enhances Muscat's beauty, but also highlight its commitment to cultural traditions and community spirit, making Ramadan even more special for residents and visitors alike. Abdullah bin Ahmed al-Rubi'i, Sultanate of Oman Television, Muscat.
And in Nizwa, Tahloula is one of the Omani traditions where children dressed in traditional costumes carrying lanterns move around in procession and recite prayers praising Allah the Almighty. And we have a report on that.
A procession of light and faith illuminated the lanes of the ancient Al-Aqar neighborhood in the Wilaya of Nizwa, as voices of children and elders rose in unison, reciting the blessed Tahloula in a magnificent display of spiritual reflection and tradition.
Tahloula is considered as Omani heritage events that stems from Islamic values, and actually this event here in Nizwa today is the second copy that we started. And in this event, the children and young people shared us, and they roamed the streets and the old neighborhoods, and we took actually our direction started from Nizwa Fort, and we returned back passing by the Al-Aqar wall and the neighborhood, the historical area there, and we returned back to the Nizwa Fort again.
At the heart of the blessed Ramadan's midpoint, this tradition is practiced in an essence of devotion and gratitude to nurture a love for Quranic recitation and reinforcing the moral fabric of society.
It is a social gathering during the holy month of Ramadan, where the young and the old come together to pray to the Almighty Allah to bless everyone in the community.
It was a scene of pure harmony, one where faith and heritage walked hand in hand. Beyond its beauty, the tradition of Tahloula is seen as a cornerstone of Omani culture, to instill in young hearts the values of piety, gratitude, and noble character.
Through prayers and supplications, Tahloula remains an integral part of community solidarity during the holy month of Ramadan. Reporting from the Wilaya of Nizwa, this is Salih Bukhalfan al-Rahbi, Al-Dakhiliya Governorate.
You're watching the Sound of Oman Television. Before tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The Sound of Oman reviews the status of Omani women and their role in building, developing and prospering the nation during the 69th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York. And China, Russia and Iran emphasize need to end all unlawful unilateral sanctions. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all the crew here, myself, Bella Kinder. Good night.